All right, we're live now. Okay.
You'll let me know when we're live.
How do you?
Yep, we are good to go. Okay. Okay. Your mic is now up. We are live. No, we're not. Okay. Seven, 6, 5, 4.
Hi everyone, Rick Russo, WVLT News, alongside Brent Hubbs, who's still working the laptop right here, and Austin Price of VolQuest.com, and we're here for a reason. Tennessee has decided to make another change atop its football program. The Jeremy Pruitt era is over at the University of Tennessee. Brent, while you continue to do that, Austin, I will ask you, I guess just too much to overcome with regards to possible impermissible benefits, recruiting violations for Coach Pruitt and this staff to overcome?
Well, recruiting improprieties, that investigation started back in the month of November. It wrapped up at the end of last week. The chancellor got the report on her desk, and they decided to make a move on this Monday, and so Tennessee's looking for a new head football coach, and coincidentally, they're looking for a new athletic director, as Philip Fulmer set to retire with likely news coming out of UT in the next couple of hours.
And Brent Hubbs, that's almost the bigger news today, is that Philip Fulmer, after a short tenure at the top of the athletics department, is going to be moving on. Of course, the legendary national championship head coach of the Volunteers.
Yeah, he's going to retire, and that's going to be announced officially this afternoon about 3 o'clock with a press conference that's going to happen there. I think that probably is the bigger news in a lot of ways, because I think most people anticipated that or thought there was a real chance that Jeremy Pruitt might not make it through this investigation. But the biggest news now, with Philip Fulmer not in place, how quick can they get an AD? How do you hire a football coach right now? One would think Kevin Steele is going to be the interim, and that will be formally announced later today. I think they want to hire an athletics director before they hire their next football coach permanently. How quick can they go about in hiring an athletics director and then allowing the athletics director to conduct a football coaching search?
Brent, go ahead.
I was going to say, the one person that comes to mind when you talk about ADs would be John Gilbert. He's got students that go here. He's been in town over the last month just to see his kids. And
Sure.
That one makes a lot of sense. He's now at East Carolina, was at Southern Miss, was here as an assistant under Dave Hart, knows Rick Barnes, understands Tennessee. So that one makes a lot of sense to me if Tennessee's going to go the route of what Brent said of putting in an AD before they make a coaching hire.
That's an interesting point, Austin, and we'll be watching for that indeed. But Brent, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. It's been a revolving door the last decade plus for Tennessee football. When it comes to football coaches, Lane Kiffin, of course, left on his own accord to go to Southern Cal, but that didn't work out. Then you had Derek Dooley, that didn't work out. Butch Jones, and now Jeremy Pruitt. Seemingly, what is Tennessee doing wrong? What does Tennessee need to do to get some stability here?
Well, I don't think they've hired the right fit.
Yeah.
I just don't think they've hired guys who are the right fit here or who are successful here. Butch Jones won 9 games twice, was close, had it going, was the closest thing to success. Lane Kiffin was a bad fit culturally. He was not ready for this job. This job was too much for him. Derek Dooley simply was not successful enough. Jeremy Pruitt simply was not successful enough. I think the problem now is who's going to be interested in this job. Listen, if you're making a change today and firing a football coach after an investigation that took 2.5 months.
Right.
We don't know where the NCAA is going to be on this thing and what's going to happen with Tennessee. level 1 infractions, level 2 infractions. What are they? We'll have to wait and see. That could change and alter the landscape greatly on who's interested in this job, what person is wanting to come along. I think there have been times they've kind of done flavor of the month. They hired a defensive coach this time, but in short order, Philip Fulmer had 2 weeks, 10 days to put a coaching staff together, which was tough. They just haven't hired the right fit, and it's just been too much of a revolving door. I think it's going to be harder to hire somebody now than it has been in any of the last coaching searches.
We'll follow with you on that too. Why can't Tennessee seem to get this right, AP?
Well, much like, look at the last 4 years at the quarterback position.
Right.
That's a smaller scope of this. But when you don't hit on the right quarterback, it's hard to hit on the right coach. Because a lot of times those two positions are kind of tied to one another. Same thing with if you don't hit on the right coach, it's hard to find success. So the formula. It sounds simple, but it's a struggle for a lot of teams to find, especially when you kind of get a downturn. And when you start going the other direction, it is so hard to swim upstream and kind of get back going in the right direction. So Tennessee needs to find the quarterback, the coach. I mean, they've got to hit on a couple of different things to get all of this going back in the right direction.
It's all of the above. Kevin Steele was hired recently. We don't know yet, but do you anticipate in this 3 o'clock meeting that Coach Steele will become the interim head coach here at Tennessee?
Yeah, that one makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And I think, depending on what happens, I mean, he may have a chance to be the head coach here. We'll see. But I mean, you think about names, and I'll let Brent speak more on this too.
Yeah.
The names that come up and that come to mind are some of the ones you've seen in other coaches' searches. I think Tom Herman makes some sense. I think Urban Meyer has reached out to some people at Tennessee already and is trying to push Tom Herman. Doug Marrone makes sense. He former Tennessee assistant. Yeah, and then Jamie Chadwell, who's from Campbell County, played his senior year at Anderson County High School. I know that he would I think have relish the chance to come home and be the guy that kind of puts Tennessee and gives it stability.
Brent, an awkward situation for Jeremy Pruitt on his way out, going to California over the weekend, as you all at VolQuest reported, to specifically meet with Henry T. and kind of reassure him and his family about the situation at Tennessee, which, as we've found out today, is changing.
Well, certainly, and a lot of players right now are trying to figure out what's going on. There's team meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. They're not sure exactly what they're going to be told, what to expect. You got midterm enrollees moved in this weekend trying to figure out what's next. And there's just a ton of unknowns with all of that. How Tennessee handles that, how do you hold this roster together is going to be really interesting. And I think for everybody that wants to know, why would you let Jeremy Pruitt go do that?
Right.
Well, I don't think that the chancellor got the findings back from the investigation until yesterday, until Sunday. And I think once she got those findings back, I think that it was deemed that, look, you got to make a move here and you've got to get going and make a change. And so that's where this thing is at, where it's going. And again, I don't want to oversell it from a drama standpoint, but I think the biggest issue right now is, what does this thing look like from an NCAA investigation standpoint?
Sure.
Because that's going to impact
who's interested.
Who's interested in the job. That's going to impact who stays on this team, from a roster standpoint. That's going to impact what the rest of this coaching staff looks like. Is Jeremy Pruitt the only one? Are there other assistant coaches who are going to be terminated today? I think there's a chance of that being the case with some assistants. So there's still a lot to unravel and sort through at this point. You really have two major stories today. You have major issues in your football program because you've just removed your head football coach, potentially more people within the program for recruiting infractions. That's going to stem an NCAA investigation. Then on the other side, you're looking for an athletics director, and I think Philip Fulmer is going to stay in place until an AD is hired, but I think they want to go pretty fast in trying to hire an AD. Two major stories in Tennessee athletics that are exclusive but also somewhat separate as well. Pretty interesting day.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see too, like just how it all unfolds. This whole time, and I've been fairly critical of the fact that they've sit there and they've told signees or potential signees everything's gonna be fine. Those kids who probably wouldn't have signed. They've told parents everything's gonna be fine, and it's obviously not. So, but then when you step back and think about it, if you had done a firing, let's say Thursday or Friday, and you did a virtual team meeting before these kids got here,
right?
The kids, one, are emotional. They're 18, 19, 20 years old.
That's a good point.
And then they walk into their living room with their parents because they're still at home. Those parents are emotional. And then they have knee-jerk reactions. And I think inevitably right now the thing to do is to get into the transfer portal because that's what happens. Anytime anything happens, it's, I'm not happy because the ice cream didn't taste good in the cafeteria. I get in the transfer portal.
Right.
That's just kind of the thing. So I think that ultimately being able to tell these kids tonight, hey, here's the deal. For Coach Steele, who we all anticipate to be the interim head coach, to step in front of them, maybe calm a little nerves. I think you have a better chance to potentially not have mass exodus. Whereas if you had done this virtually, where they're around family and friends, and let's face it, I know if I told my mom, she's gonna get emotional about something like this. That's how that's going to work. So I think this has a much better chance to kind of stabilize potentially. We'll see.
And we'll talk with both of you guys about this, but Brent, and we've discussed this at length, what a difference a year makes. Last year was Tennessee winning 6 straight games. They win the first 2 of this season. They had won 8 in a row, and then the roof caves in. They lose 7 of their last 8 to finish 3-7. There's an internal investigation. It's kind of mind-boggling and head-shaking when you think about what this program, the ups and downs, the roller coaster ride that this football program has taken over the last decade.
Well, there's no question, and I mean, nothing epitomizes that more than the last 15 months of this program.
Right.
Everybody was wondering last December, January, you got to get Coach Pruitt a raise because you might lose him. Who you're going to lose him to? What happens? He's going to be on Alabama's wish list and all this other stuff. To now we're at the point where it was just an abysmal season on the field, and now you're in a situation where you don't have a head coach, you don't have an AD in place to make the hire of a new head coach at this point in time. You got a lot of people out there going, what in the world? And I think that's going to be the narrative out there today, is what in the world is going on at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the narrative till some new hires are made and until we get an idea of what this thing may look like from an NCAA standpoint.
It's you're right, Brent. It's a head-shaking thing, isn't it, Austin?
It is. I mean, Josh Ward at the Sports Animal posted the video of Philip Fulmer last year at the recruiting celebration. The Vols are back. Yeah, they're back looking for another coach, and they're looking for an AD. And so, obviously not ideal. We'll see what the message is from the chancellor later today. We'll see what the message is from Philip Fulmer later today. But this is something that 5 months ago no one would have anticipated. When Tennessee went to the half at Georgia with the lead sitting there at 2-0,
That's right.
Nobody would have anticipated how the next few months were going to unfold. And yet here we are, standing here in mid-January, and it's cold, it's windy, and the phones are ringing, but they're not ringing because of recruiting or anything else. They're ringing because Tennessee is underway for a new search for a football coach.
All right, Brent, do you have anything else as we wrap it up? Maybe let the folks on VolQuest know what your coverage plans are today.
Well, I think the biggest thing to everybody right now is just a timeline, kind of where is everything and what's happening here. Later today, the chancellor is going to make a statement. Philip Fulmer is going to address the media with a statement about his decision and what's led to this and what things look like moving forward. I do feel like that Tennessee is going to use a search firm and they want to hire an AD first. How quick can they get that done? Can they get it done by the end of the month? Typically those searches last a while. You would think this one would go fast. Then they will get into a search for a head coach. Kevin Steele is going to be the interim. I think that Kevin Steele will have a chance to get this job, as Austin mentioned. What do they look like staff-wise, and what do they do to try to get this team to settle down and go to class on Wednesday,
right?
And to go about their business and say, hey, give us all a chance to get it settled, and then we'll wait for document releases of what they found in the investigation to find out what this thing could or could not look like from an NCAA standpoint.
Yeah, an interesting couple weeks ahead of us here.
Yeah, it is. There's going to be much like the anticipation of potentially this would happen today. Kind of led to all the rumors and speculation out there. There's going to be a lot of rumors and speculation that are going to be thrown about what happened, how it went wrong, who's to replace Philip Fulmer, who's to replace Jeremy Pruitt. So a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah. All right, folks, our coverage continues on VolQuest.com, on WVLT.tv throughout the day. Be sure to check out the WVLT app for the latest information. We will take that news conference for you live on our social platforms at 3 o'clock as we hear from Philip Fulmer and whoever else might be with him inside the Tennessee studios across the way. And of course, we'll be back with you on air on WVLT later today. With Brent Hubbs and Austin Price of VolQuest.com, I'm Rick Russo. Thanks for tuning in.